Hey everyone, Laura here with Rags to Rugs, and I've always felt that twine weaving was the easiest form of rug making. And I've always said that if you can braid hair, you can twine weave. However, there's one part of twine weaving that always trips up the beginner, myself included about 20 years ago, and that is making the turns. So we're hoping that this video will help. Okay, so we've set up our frame already. This is a placemat frame. I've gone ahead and warped the frame, and as you can see, I've already got the band across here securing the warp on the nails. I've chosen a white warp, and though it's a little patriotic, a red and a navy so that you can clearly see what I'm doing. We're using our trusty GoPro, and we're going to try to zoom in really close on this because I really want to accomplish this for you so that you walk away from this video feeling very confident in making these turns. So though I've already started this, as you can see, with the red and the blue on my white warp, I'm going to continue on as we approach the loop. This is the beginning slip knot that, if you recall, is how you start to warp your frame. And if you don't remember these steps, we're going to put a link at the bottom of this video on our original video on how to twine weave, all the different steps. This one, we're just going to be exclusively making the turns. So I'm going to continue on with the red in my right hand, the navy in my left, right over left, and under that next warp, pulling up just a little bit there, up toward those nails. Pull it on through, right over left and under that warp. Now, as you can see, we're approaching that loop, right over left, and instead of under the warp, only on this first row, we're going to take this red and we're going to slip it through the slip knot. Remember that. Slip it through the slip knot and under the warp, which in this case is just the rod. Now, this is the only row that you're going to do that. You're going to slip, as you can see, the red one through the slip knot and under the warp. I caution you at this point because if you don't go through this slip knot right here, when you take your rug off of the frame, it will fall apart. This is a very important step, but it's also a very simple step, and this is the step that trips everybody up. This row and this row only, feed the red one in this case, through the loop, the slip knot here, and under the rod. From this point on, and only, this is the only time you go through the slip knot. From this point on, you're not going to go through the slip knot, but this first warp and this rod will be considered one and the same. Now we're going to go left to right, pulling up just a little bit there, and we're going to go left over right. And you see this navy one? You're going to go around the rod and the warp, and we're going to switch gears now. Left over right and under the warp. Left over right and under the warp. Again and again. And because I chose these particular fabrics, these colors, you can see that the reds are aligning, the blue, the red, and the blue. And I'm going to cinch these up in here just a second. You'll see this. It providing almost a herringbone look. That will be your cue that you're doing this pattern correctly. Left over right and under the warp. We're going to go down to the other side and we're going to make the turn down there too so you can see that. And you can play this video over and over and over again. But just know that when we come back down here, you're no longer going to be going through the loop, but you're going to be under this warp, treating this warp and this rod as one. It will always be one and the same. I'm going to take my trusty shears at this point. I'm going to push these up toward the nails. And again, if you know me, always use nails on your rod. We've got do-it-yourself instructions to build your own. We've got all the components if you're looking for the steel rods, the nails, all the hardware. We have that. Okay, so I'm going to add another blue to this short strip right here, folding it back a 1/2 inch, taking my shears, making a 1/4 inch slit, Open up those strips, finding the end and feeding it up, and we're going to continue on. Left over right and under the warp. Keep those strips kind of short. I always recommend about 16, 18 inches at the maximum, because otherwise, see, this is what happens when you've got long strips. They get kind of tangled up. Might be just a little bit too long. Left over right and under the warp. Left over right. Left over right. Still tangling up a little bit, but that's okay. Left over right and under the warp. And I'm going to take my shears. I'm going to show you one more time how beautiful this is. Pulling down just slightly on your warp and up on your weft, which is a row of beautiful patriotic colors I've got here. Again, you can see that we're doing this correctly because those colors are aligning right underneath each other. And we're going to continue on so I can show you again one more time on this right side of my frame how to make that turn. Left over right, just like braiding hair. You kind of get into a rhythm when you're doing this. And in fact, you can watch a TV show with your family and still continue weaving and not have to really focus on it too much. We're close to the end, and again, kind of pulling up as you weave. The red one is in my left hand, the blue is obviously in my right. Left over right, and under the warp and the rod, which again, on the left side, are treated as one and the same. The red one's going to go under this warp and the rod, giving it a little bit tug, making sure that it holds nice and snug against that rod. We're going to go right over left, but this blue one now is going to go around the rod and the warp. We're going to change gears a little bit. The blue is now in my right hand, right over left, and under that next warp. Right over left, and under the warp. And we're going to continue on toward the other side. And again, when I push this up, you're going to clearly see that my pattern, that little herringbone look here, is aligning. I'm going to pause right here, take out my trusty shears. I'm going to pull down on this warp just a little bit and push up at the same time. Pull down, push up. Pull down, push up. Do you see the colors as they're aligning? I think personally this is going to be a beautiful placement. I think I'm going to finish it off yet this evening. Now, when you're twine weaving, you're not going to see much of this warp at all throughout the body of your rug. You will see it, a glimpse of it on the tips. And again, by using these nails as opposed to dowel pegs, you won't see but just a glimpse. But consider that when you're warping your frame to make sure that it coordinates with the pattern that you've selected for your placemat. But we're going to continue on from this point on. Again, make sure on that first row to go through the slip knot. From that point on, no worries. Do the same pattern on this side, and that's pretty much it. Play the video over and over again if you get a little bit confused or just need a refresher course. And in the meantime, we're going to provide a link at the bottom of this video, our original twine weaving video that covers everything about twine weaving, including the warp, including taking off the rug off the frame, and how to finish it off. So hopefully this video helps and you'll be successful at twine weaving, and we hope you stay in touch. Subscribe to our channel, and thank you so much.